Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devam Saraswatam Vyasam Tato Jayam Madhurayat Nasta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloka Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. Okay, reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 8, text number 22. Okay. Nama Pankajanabhaya Nama Pankajamalini Nama Pankajanetraya Namaste Pankajangraye Nama Pankajanabhaya Nama Pankajamalini Nama Pankajanetraya Namaste Pankajangraye Nama Pankajanabhaya Nama Pankajanamaline Nama Pankajanetraya Namaste Pankajangraye. Okay. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Nama Pankajanabhaya Nama Pankajanabhaya Nama Pankajanabhaya Okay. Word for word, please repeat after me. Nama. All respectful obeisances. Pankajanabhaya. Unto the Lord, who has a specific depression, resembling a lotus flower, in the center of his abdomen. Nama. Obeisances. Pankajamalini. One who is always decorated with the garland of lotus flowers. Nama. Obeisances. Pankajanetraya. One whose glance is as cooling as a lotus flower. Namaste. Respectful obeisances unto you. Pankaja Angraye. Unto you. The soles of whose feet are engraved with lotus flowers, and who are therefore said to possess lotus feet. Thank you. Okay, the translation of the verse. My respectful obeisances are unto you, O Lord, whose abdomen is marked with a depression like a lotus flower, who are always decorated with garlands of lotus flowers, whose glance is as cool as the lotus, and whose feet are engraved with lotuses. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Here are some specific symbolic marks on the spiritual body of the personality of Godhead, which distinguishes body from the bodies of all others. They are all special features of the body of the Lord. The Lord may appear as one of us, but he is always distinct by his specific bodily features. Srimati Kunti claims herself unfit to see the Lord because of her being a woman. This is claimed because women, Sudras, the labor class, and the Dvija Bandhus, or the wretched descendants of the higher three classes, are unfit by intelligence to understand transcendental subject matter concerning the spiritual name, fame, attributes, forms, etc. of the Supreme Absolute Truth. Such persons, although they are unfit to enter into the spiritual affairs of the Lord, can see him as the Archa Vigraha who descends on the material world just to distribute favors to the fallen souls, including the above-mentioned women, Sudras, and Dvija Bandhus. Because such fallen souls cannot see anything beyond matter, the Lord condescends to enter into each and every one of the innumerable universes as the Garbhodaksha Vishnu, who grows a lotus stem from a lotus-like depression in the center of his transcendental abdomen, and thus Brahma, the first living being in the universe, is born. Therefore the Lord is known as the Pankajanabi. The Pankajanabi Lord accepts the Archa Vigraha, his transcendental form, in different elements, namely a form within the mind, a form made of wood, a form made of earth, a form made of metal, a form made of jewel, a form made of paint, a form drawn on sand, etc. All such forms of the Lord are always decorated with garlands of lotus flowers, and there should be a soothing atmosphere in the temple of worship to attract the burning attention of the non-devotees always engaged in material wranglings. The meditators worship a form within the mind. Therefore the Lord is merciful even to the women, Sudras and Dvija Bandhus, provided they agree to visit the temple of worship in different forms made for them. Such temple visitors are not idolaters as alleged by some men with a poor fund of knowledge. All the great acharyas established such temples of worship in all places just to favor the less intelligent, and one should not pose himself as transcending the stage of temple worship while one is actually in the category of the Sudras and the women or less. One should begin to see the Lord from his lotus feet, gradually rising to the thighs, waist, chest, and face. One should not try to look at the face of the Lord without being accustomed to seeing the lotus feet of the Lord. Srimati Kunti, because of her being the aunt of the Lord, did not begin to see the Lord from the lotus feet because the Lord might feel ashamed. And thus Kunti Devi, just to save a painful situation for the Lord, began to see the Lord just above his lotus feet, i.e. from the waist of the Lord, gradually rising to the face, and then down to the lotus feet. In the round, everything there is in order. Om Jnanatam Mandasya Gnandanam Shlakaya Chakshur Mritamyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Hare Krishna. So this purport has some very interesting points and it has to be understood properly because it says some very inflammatory things here which to modern men and women might be disturbing, but if we look at it very objectively, then we can normalize it in our minds. In the Kali Yuga, it is said that all women all people, not all women, sorry, all people are Sudras. So that's the first thing to understand. In the Kali Yuga, and as the Kali Yuga becomes more advanced, it seems that there's less distinction between male and female, and a lot of men want to become women, a lot of women want to become men. So there's a lot of confusion about people's roles in society. So when Prabhupada dealt with women, I was listening to an interview with Narayani about how she understood these purports about women being less intelligent. And she said that she found that with her dealings with Srila Prabhupada, he didn't deal with her like that. Neither did many women who personally associated with Srila Prabhupada. So Prabhupada, he didn't discriminate between men and women. He treated everybody equally or with love. And therefore women didn't feel discriminated against, even though Prabhupada wrote purports like this. And even though the Srimad Bhagavatam has many examples of women who self-confessingly, say they're women, and why do you trust women? Because women are, they can be sly like foxes, and so, but Prabhupada himself, his dealings weren't like that. And we know that in the Kali Yuga, people are very confused, and so we find that a lot of women are actually a lot more intelligent than a lot of men, obviously so. And so historically, it seems that men were the intellectuals, at least back many years ago. All the greatest philosophers in the world, all the greatest scientists, they were men. But they've also caused the greatest destruction. All the biggest problems in the world have been caused by men. Like Aurangzeb, he's a man, killed millions of Hindus, Stalin, you name it. So many men have done. We don't find so many women who have done so many bad things as the men have. So, men can do the worst things. Even nowadays, Prabhupada said that in the modern age, the scientists are like the demoniac species. So we find the scientists, the big scientists, like Richard Dawkins, he wrote his big book, The God Delusion. Actually, apparently, this wonderful Dayananda Prabhu was writing a refutation of that book because it was such a big bestseller, written by a man. But some of the greatest scientists have been men, mostly Einstein, Isaac Newton. But, the fact is that in this day and age, women are often more intelligent than men, and they see things from a different perspective than men. Like myself, I see things a certain way, and sometimes, quite often actually, my wife, she's very intelligent, she helps me see things in a different way, a totally different way, which I would never have thought of. So they have a different grasp of things, a different way of looking at things. And although we find that in the history of Vaishnavism, there are not many female gurus, there are some very prominent ones who had male disciples, actually. One of them was the daughter of Srinivasacharya, who was Hemalata, what's her name? Hemalata Thakurani, that's right. So her samadhi is there, along with King Birhambir. We're very interesting thing. King Birhambir, he was a king, but he had been corrupted. He became a thief. But when he saw the handwriting of the Goswami's books, his mind became changed and he became a great devotee. So there's a samadhi of his in Vrindavan because he became a great devotee. And his guru was Srinivasacharya. And Srinivasacharya was his advisor when he ruled his kingdom. And his kingdom became a great kingdom. And so they had a law that if you didn't chant Hare Krishna in the kingdom, you were punished by law. It's a great idea, isn't it? So Prabhupada said that it doesn't matter which religion you follow, but if you say you're following a particular religion, you have to actually follow it properly. And the duty of the government was to make sure that you were following your religion properly. But I would love to be in a kingdom like that, where if you don't chant Hare Krishna, you're punished. What's that? I think it's a great idea. Anyway, so that's what the world needs. You see, the problem is we've got so many demoniac leaders, and they never themselves think of chanting Hare Krishna, let everybody else, let alone make everybody else chant Hare Krishna. So we're living in bad times. But she had, Hemalata Thakurani, she had many male and female disciples. Janava Mata, she had disciples. Of course, in the modern world, we find there are different religions, like the Mormons and the Catholics. They don't have Catholic female priests. So I asked some Catholic women about that. I said, well, how do you feel about this? Don't you resent the fact that, women aren't allowed to become priests in your religion? And they said, no, we don't mind at all. The priest is like the father, we see him as a father. And I asked some Mormons the same thing, because they also don't have male priests in their church. And I asked the Mormon ladies, and they said, no, we don't mind at all. But they did a lot of research. Now, the top brains in ISKCON were asked to research whether females could give initiation. It's not really part of this purport, but just to clarify. The top brains on the GBC a couple of years ago, they were asked to research whether females could give initiation. And they found that, yes, Prabhupada did give exceptions, that they could, but they had to be protected at the same time. They couldn't be just a traveling preacher, but or if they were, they had to be under some kind of protection from a family member or from a guru or something like that. So, but deity worship is not, Prabhupada talks about deity worship especially for the less intelligent, but we find actually that deity worship is something for all classes of society. And therefore, in the Srimad Bhagavatam 11th canto, there's a whole chapter about deity worship where Krishna explains how to worship the deity. And we find that so many prominent acharyas, practically all the Goswamis had deities. Madhavendra Puri worshipped the deity. Krishna's grandson, of course, Vajra, he established so many deities for his grandfather Krishna in Vrindavan. So deity worship is a very, one of the 5 principal limbs of bhakti. Deity worship is very important for everybody. And sometimes back, when I was a younger devotee, we were told that deity worship wasn't very important. And we were told, just go out and distribute books, which is great, but at the same time, all these things should be there in ISKCON. We should have first-class deity worship, and we should also be preaching. So I regret that when I was young, I didn't really participate in any deity worship. I was told by different people that it's not really as important as preaching. But I really regret that, because I think deity worship is really important. And Prabhupada himself, he established so many deities. And this is one of his great, wonderful accomplishments, is that in practically every major city in the world that was free at the time, which means that the USSR, the Soviet Union, wasn't really possible to establish deities in there. Because they have deities now, but Prabhupada established temple deity worship in London, New York, Paris, Los Angeles, so many big cities, West Virginia. And it's amazing that the deity worship is actually, the standard has improved since Prabhupada established the deities. But the devotees took it so seriously that, the standard of deity worship, for instance, in London or Bhaktivedanta Mana, the standard is so high. They have so many pujaris who are completely dedicated to worshipping the deity. And of course, many people come to see the deity. If you go to London, you'll find, they have many people coming throughout the day to see the deities. When they have big festivals, thousands of people come. Of course, in Tirupati, which is one of the most successful temples in India, they get at least a few thousand people a day, 3,000 or 4,000 people a day. They're queuing up all day to go see the deities. When they have a big festival, they get 30,000 people. Even Bhaktivedanta Mana, when they used to have Janmashtami before the pandemic, they would have 70,000 people in London, just outside London, and they would queue up and they would all have very quick look at the deity, then be ushered on. They weren't allowed to spend much time in front of the deity because there were so many people that wanted to see the deity. So this is amazing that Prabhupada established this deity worship in such a wonderful way. And Los Angeles, Rukmini Dwarkadish, she established a standard of deity worship which was very reverential, because he said that in the beginning you have to worship the deity in a very reverential way. You can't be too intimate with the deity. We see that some very advanced devotees, they're very intimate with their deities. They don't follow any rules and regulations so much. Like that Vamsi Thakur. He was a great devotee, he had long hair, he was like an avadhuta, and he had his deity, and he would treat his deity. Sometimes he would chastise his deity for not eating or something. But Prabhupada's standard was totally different, that, Rukmini Dwarkadish, this is, it's the deity, we cannot be too familiar with the deity. So therefore, very punctual, very clean. Prabhupada said these are the two main components of deity worship. So deity worship is very important. And as well as, understanding, like we can understand that the deity is transcendental. It's not made of stone, it's not made of metal. So we also have to understand how Vaishnavas, they're not the body. We don't see the body of the Vaishnava. We see the devotion of the Vaishnava. Whether it's female or male, it doesn't really matter. So one time Prabhupada told the story of Mirabai. Mirabai, she was a great devotee. Prabhupada was explaining. I was going to read it actually. It's very interesting. Because we don't hear much about Mirabai, and sometimes we may think, she's not really a great devotee or anything, but Prabhupada says here. Huh?
I like
her. She's a great devotee. She's a lot better than we are. So she said, Prabhupada said, reporter, you think Mirabai was a devotee? Prabhupada, yes, he was a devotee. She was a devotee. Yes, she had this quality of presence. Oh yes. Reporter, yes, direct dialogue. Prabhupada, oh yes, otherwise how could she tell it to the king that, no, you are not husband. I've already got my husband, Giridhari. Reporter, yes. And the king sent the poison. And she drank it. Prabhupada, yes. I think that you people, you can understand this philosophy very nicely and do good to the people. What is the name of your paper? Oh. Indian man, Prabhupada, Jiva Goswami was the guru of Mira? Prabhupada, no, I do not know who is the guru of Mirabai. But Mirabai, from the childhood, she was a devotee. But I do not hear anyone as the guru. Indian man, no, but who was living in Vrindavan? Was Jiva Goswami living in Vrindavan? Prabhupada, yes, 6 Goswamis, Rupa Sanatan, Bhattaraganath, Shri Jiva Gopal, Bhattadasa Raghunath. They were immediate disciples of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They were entrusted to develop Vrindavan, and they did it. Modern Vrindavan means this is the contribution of the 6 Goswamis. Prabhupada, so that may be whatever is there, but Rupa Goswami had no reason to refuse seeing a woman because Mirabai wanted to meet Rupa Goswami, and so Rupa Goswami, he refused to meet her because she was a woman. And Mirabai said, well, that's funny because I thought in Vrindavan there weren't any women, or there weren't any men. Everyone is a woman. So then Rupa Goswami, he acceded. He said, yes, that's true, I'm wrong. But it's not known whether they actually met. Maybe, do you know if they ever met? Anyway, so, but... Huh?
I had a little different version of Siddhanta Gaudiya.
Why?
Because she just did not accept Radharani to be next to Krishna.
I'm just giving the simplified version.
She wants to be next to Krishna. So she ended up, actually there is a discussion on whether there's Prabhupada and this Indian man about this. The Mirabai merged into Dwarka, this temple.
Okay. But the Goswamis, they didn't discriminate against women because Prabhupada goes on to say, no, any Goswami, because the Goswamis were so popular that amongst the villagers, when there was some disagreement between family members, they used to come to see him and say to him, Baba, that means in that way he had to see many women many times. Why should he refuse? And what is the meaning of refusing if anybody? Even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not refuse, but women used to offer their respects from little distance, not very near. That was Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's restriction. But in our association, there is no such thing as refusing anyone the opportunity. Krishna does not say, Mami Pathya Bhashritya Ye Pisu Papayonaya Striya Sujastata Vaisha. He does not make any. And so far my institute is concerned, we do not make such thing. Everyone should be given chance But we have restriction that we should mix with women very cautiously. You should not have any illicit sex. These things are there. So I was going to read a couple of songs by Mirabai, because I'd never seen them before, and I think I've never heard them before, so I think it's interesting. So this is a beautiful song. Ob to Hari Nam Dun Lo Lagi by Mirabai. O pious souls, now my consciousness is absorbed in the divine vibration of the names of my Hari. I surrender myself to his holy name. The entire world addresses him as the butter thief, but now he has earned another popular name for himself as Vairagi, the dispassionate wandering monk. O my dearest Mohan, why have you discarded your intimate companion, Priyasaki, the divine flute? And why have you renounced all your eternal sweetheart, Gopas? You appear now with shaven head and ochre cloth at your waist, but this clever gopi uncovers your disguise and doesn't care to conceal it. Now it seems that Mother Yashoda is tied up to both arms of butter thief. Alas, no more mischievous tricks. My dark beloved has now appeared as the newly fresh golden Lord, whose blessed name is Chaitanya. Though clad himself in skimpy rags, his pitamba, yellow divine attire, as well as his innermost divine love sentiments, are revealed to me. Now Mirabai is the maidservant of the golden Krishna Chaitanya, whether the glory of my Krishna is recognized by all or not. So that's one. This is another one. Oh friend, I like Vrindavan so much, where in every home there is worship of Tulsi and the deity with darshan of Govindaji, where the pure waters of the Jamuna flow and where the foodstuffs are milk and yogurt. Oh friend, I like Vrindavan so much, where the deity sits on a jeweled throne with Tulsi in his crown. Oh friend, I like Vrindavan very much, where Radhika roams from kunja to kunja, having heard no other the vibration of his flute. Oh friend, I like Vrindavan so much. The hero Giridhari is the master of Mira, who says that without bhajan a person is dull. Oh friend, I like Vrindavan so much. One more. This is the refrain. The Queen Mira is simply a beggar woman, but only for your sake, O Giridhari. I simply wander here and there like a mendicant, but I seek only the alms of your holy name. People say Mira has become a mad woman. The king says she has disgraced her family. But Mira says, O Lord Giridhari, my only desire is to remain at your lotus feet. O Prabhuji, kindly reveal yourself to me. Mira simply weeps for you, my Lord. Please don't make this most unfortunate person cry anymore. Please keep me tightly embraced as if united with your own body. O Giridhari, you are the life and soul of Mira. Mira appears to have the mood more of a Saki, whereas many Gaudiya Vaishnava acharyas want to bring Radha and Krishna together to the mood of Manjari. Anyway, that's another story. So, beautiful songs, eh? So basically, Prabhupada said that all souls are female. So actually, you know, when we think we're male, this is a misconception, because we're all female. And ultimately, whatever we are in the spiritual world, we're female in the sense that we're the enjoyed. Krishna is the enjoyer. But one interesting, of course, is that Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Narottam Das Thakur, they even knew their identity in the spiritual world. They knew their name in the spiritual world. So if we can remember we're not male, we're not female, we're actually eternal servants of Krishna, and that we're here for Krishna's enjoyment, and that that is the perfection of life. So it's time to finish. Any questions, comments? Great. Reflections?
On the online there is just something.
I never knew that Mirabai knew about Lord Chaitanya. That was interesting.
Yeah, she must have been.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's the question?
It says, I wonder where we can find the specific verse where Prabhupada is alleged to
Where we
have
can
said
find what?
scientists are a demoniac species.
Where we can find what?
Scientists are a demoniac species.
Where can you find it?
Yeah.
Well, Prabhupada talked about scientists being the modern day demons. I, off the top of my head, I don't know where exactly, but I'm sure I can find it if I had to. Have you ever read that? Anybody?
Demoniac species?
Well, I don't know. Maybe, maybe the demoniac species. I don't know about that.
And he got on the case of scientists, but I never heard he said demonic species.
Anyway, that's the question.
Well, he said, the more you kick on Darwin's face with your boots, the more advanced you are.
Oh, that's Tito the Muni. That's right.
So,
Ask me for another question. He does have one there.
I mean, devotee scientists aren't demoniac species, but because scientists, just like this Richard Dawkins, his aim, he's demoniac. Of course he's demoniac. Whether you call him a demoniac species or not, he's a demon. He's trying to tell everybody that God doesn't exist. That's demoniac. So it's clearly in the Bhagavad Gita, in the chapter Divine and Demoniac Species, Divine and Demoniac Natures, that people who say there's no God, what about people who try to convince others by printing millions of copies of a book that say there's no God? That's demoniac. It's simple. They mislead so many people, and that's one of the problems in the world, is that people are confused by these scientists, because basically the scientists, they say there's no God in control, just like Krishna says, the demoniac nature, they say there's no God in control, this world is unreal, it's just a big bang, this is demoniac. So, we can't be sentimental when we look at people's statements who try to mislead the world, because, the main problem is that people are confused whether God exists or not, and the main culprits who brought this about are the scientists, right? Any more questions?
No, just some comments.
Comments.
Tito the Muni Prabhu gave a comment also. After all, he also dedicated his first book, Easy Journey to the Scientist of the World, with blessings of his spiritual master Bhakti Siddhanta.
Jai Shri Prabhupada ki Jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki